The next part of putting this together is to mark really accurate seam lines on the lapel pieces, and you want to do that from the point of the last stitch on the neckline edge here. That's where your long threads are. So I've drawn a very faint, I'm afraid, chalk line all the way, and that's 5/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric all the way to the tip, and then down for another inch or so just down onto the front of the lapel. And I've done exactly the same on this side. So from the last stitch where the long threads are all the way down to the tip, and then down again to that side part there. And that's going to help me to make sure that I have really nice, neat, accurate points on my lapels, and help me to sew that together. So this is a really neat way to make sure that your notches line up on your collar. What I've done here is I've pinned through the last stitch on the neckline. So I've got my two ends. I've taken the thread of one of the long lengths that's on this outside, and I've taken it through to that notch there. And now I need to tie off all of my lengths. So I've got quite a few there, but I'm going to tie them all off. And that makes sure that it brings those, oh here, let me make sure you can see, that it brings those notches absolutely together. So a good tight knot on there. And that means that that notch is absolutely in the right place, and I can just trim those off. And that's the end of those long lengths. So that means I can take this pin out, and those are held exactly in the right place, ready to start pinning all of the rest of the lapels together. Now that I've matched up and secured the notches, I'm pinning around the edge of the lapel along the seam line. I've matched up those edges so that they're exactly the same, and I'm pinning down the front of the lapel, and I'll carry on and I'll pin to the bottom of the jacket and that unit, and I'll show you what that looks like when I start sewing. Now that I've pinned the lapel together from here and around the edge down the front, the next step is actually to sew the collar together, and you're going to do that from the notch around the edge, along the top, and then back down to the other notch. Now that I've sewn around the collar, I'm going to sew down the lapel following the lines that I'd made previously. They're very, very faint now, but I can still see them. And I'm going to, again, reduce the stitch length once I get to this point, stitch a couple of stitches across the point, and then carry on. So here we go. I'm following that line. Okay. Just turn that at that point. Still following that line. Going very slowly. There's never any need to rush. I can see where that point's coming to, so I'm just going to shorten my stitch length. Just wanted to show you a close-up of the 2 pin tucks that I made in the upper collar here and the lapel. These are both on the outside of the fabric, and they're very small tucks, and they're about a ½ an inch away from the seam line in each case. Now this causes the seam edge to roll towards the back, and that again just finishes off your collar and your lapel really beautifully, and causes it to sit nice and flat. I've finished sewing the lapels and collar together, and I'm now just checking the accuracy of those seams and the corners and making sure that they look all right. So I've placed the outer collar sides together, lined it up with the back there, and I'm just now going to look at the seams to see that they match up, and they do there, and they match up again there. If you're not happy with that match, then I would adjust the stitching, and it's easily done. You can just stitch over and then check that they do match again. I know that my notches match, and then I'm just going to place the 2 lapels together, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to just check those curves, and can you see on this side I actually did that by hand. I've adjusted that stitching, the curve on that lapel there, to make sure that it exactly matches that other one. So don't be afraid of doing that at this point. So now we're in a position to now trim these seams and then press them before we can turn those out to the correct side. You'll notice as well that I removed the basting stitch that was along that edge of the collar, and that was just so that I could really accurately check those seams for that. So I'm looking forward to now pressing and trimming these seams allowances, and I'll show you how to do that next.